hello to all of you. We are very glad to have here today with us in New York to have here William Lauder. William, thank you very much for joining us for this session of the Kipling Balance. We are delighted to have this. I am personally delighted to have this conversation with you because it's the first time we are doing this podcast in New York. So thank you very much for joining us, William.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
And as you know, William, in this Kipling Balance podcast, we always ask our guest to select several fragments of this poem. Let us start with the fragments that you have selected. You have selected several, all of them very, very interesting. The first one you selected is "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you." I must tell you that the first part of this fragment I have faced many times. Keep your head when all about you are losing theirs. The second part I have never faced, the blaming it on me. But why have you selected this fragment and what does it mean to you?
Well, I believe very strongly that an effective leader makes sure that their team is capable of handling all the challenges. But you have to be prepared to take none of the credit and all of the blame.
Yeah.
The success of the team is due to the strength and capabilities of the team. But the challenges that the team faces, if you will, those are your responsibility to prepare them for that so that they don't have those challenges. So I feel very strongly, and it's sort of an adaptation, if you will, somewhat of the Japanese philosophy also, from a management standpoint, that you as a leader are only as good as the weakest link in the chain of the team that you lead, but it's your responsibility to make sure that everybody's better. And really, we as leaders have to give the credit to the people who have actually executed it, but we take the responsibility when they aren't able to execute correctly because they need to be able to go and do it again. And if they're afraid of being blamed for it, they might not actually make the effort that you want them to make. So by pulling the blame away, you're essentially empowering your team to be effective without fear of retribution.
And that's absolutely, I fully agree with that view. And well, you have mentioned many different things, no? But with some of them, sometimes I say that when there is a success, it's always we. When there is a failure, it's always me. No, that's the philosophy that you were mentioning. And then the second part that you were saying, which is very, very relevant, is people not to be afraid to take decisions. No, and you see many organizations that if you don't, and it's I fully the responsibility of the leader is to create this environment in which people are not afraid to take decisions. No, because that is when there is any type of organization in which everybody is afraid about the consequences of any problem or decision, then you are killing this spirit, no? I think.
Exactly. Another way of looking at it is you as a leader have to be prepared to take none of the credit and all of the blame.
Yeah.
And then there's a part of it, and this is something we believe in very strongly in our organization. I think most organizations have different ways of expressing the same thing. To encourage the creativity, which is encouraging the efforts to try something new, you have to actually give your people permission to fail. Because permission to fail is permission to try. And so how do we as leaders encourage those people whom we lead to try new things, to try to do it a different way, perhaps do it a better way? And number one, celebrate their failures with everybody so that we learn how to do it right, or we learn what not to do. But celebrating failure essentially shares imagination and creativity, which ultimately moves an organization forward. Because when you think about it, whatever you're doing, if you can't do it better this week than what you did last week, we won't improve and we won't be better. So we have to celebrate the experimentation, experiment inside, try something new, because ultimately that's what everybody's looking for, a new way of doing things, make it better, make it faster, make it work more efficiently. Because if we can work more efficiently and do better, we are improving our own performance. And as we improve our own performance, hopefully we improve the performance of the entire team.
Yeah, and to create this environment, well, it's not that easy, I would say, in many organizations, but to create this environment is absolutely key. To create this environment we could call it also entrepreneurial spirit inside the company. So people being able to take initiatives and to have good people, talented people, and then giving them freedom, no, create this environment in which they can develop themselves. I think this is absolutely essential in any organization. As you were saying, is the role of the leader. It could be the leader globally of the company or the leader of a team, because all these things we talk about leadership uh, are applicable to the head of a company, in your case, Estée Lauder, but it's also applicable to everybody who is leading a team or leading a brand or leading a market. So there are many, many leadership positions inside any company.
Absolutely true. These principles apply to a unit leader,
Yeah.
however big or small that unit might be.
Yeah.
How do you as a leader get the very best out of your teams? And one of the things I believe in fundamentally is there's 3 basic forms of leadership. Leadership from in front, let me show you how it's done. Leadership alongside, let's do it together. And leadership from behind, show me how good you can be. Our responsibility as leaders is to determine which place in that those different leadership options we need to be for whatever the given task may be. It may be to start, let me show you the way I think it ought to be done and how it gets best. Then, okay, now show me how you can do it. And then ultimately, I trust you to do it well, so I'll stick behind. I learned this principle really talking about military leadership. So in the days of Alexander the Great and his white horse, he ran in front and inspired his troops, and then he fought alongside his troops. But then as weaponry got stronger, the generals moved further back from the front lines to protect them, and they could still communicate with those who were in front. So during Napoleon's time, Napoleon and his team and his white horse, they were in the back using sound, music, drum and fife and other ways of communicating with their troops and how their movements should be made. And that look at the progression of how military leadership works. Well, effective leadership of an organization, a business organization, is the same way. We as individuals grow up to be really good at something. We teach others how to do it. And then ultimately, when we teach them how to do it, we give them the freedom to actually go do it. If you think of the medical profession, there's an expression when it's in a surgery, see one, do one, teach one. See how it's done, then do it. But the real test of whether you have the knowledge and skills, can you teach somebody else to do something well? And if you think of what those key characteristics are of leadership, they're very effective communication, which is all about teaching others to be really good at what they do and then letting them do it.
Yeah. There are different moments in the life of the companies, because there are moments in which the whole company is looking to the leader, no, and expecting something from you, and then you need to be in front. But perhaps later on you can be in a different position.
Well, that's why I say each situation requires a different place, and one of the characteristics of an effective leader is knowing what's the right application of your leadership skills at any given time. Is it in front of everybody, giving them the confidence? Is it alongside them saying, we're doing this? And you really, each situation, you have to really use your judgment to determine what's the right place to be.
And now that we are talking about leadership, when you think about your teams, what are you looking for? When you think about your more...
First, I'm looking for effectiveness. Do they understand their marketplace? Do they understand their consumer? Do they understand their teams? And are they delivering results consistently over a long period of time and doing it the right way, sustainably? We believe very strongly in being in the consumer package business, especially, that it's about getting the consumer to come back and buy it again. The first time we inspire her to buy it, but when she comes back and buys it again, she uses it up and buys it again. That's a validation of what we've offered her, number one, and the experience we've offered her. And if she buys it again and again, that gives us those long-term sustainable results, number one. But most importantly, the credibility of trust that we have with our consumer, that when they come back again, they want to buy what they just used up. They then trust us to try something else. And we can expand our offerings to our consumers. So how do we, within that principle, what do we do to treat them, to make them feel like they're great, number one, that they're getting the very best product, and that they feel they've gotten a value for their experience? In other words, I enjoyed this experience. This was great. I was made to feel good, and I got a very high quality experience and product, which brings back the repetition. What's my role in this is my role is to encourage the teams to offer to make sure that we have that very best experience for the consumer. And when I look in our teams is that, do they maintain the values of our organization? Do they make sure that the people whom they lead follow those values and continue to treat our customer, our consumer, the very best way possible so that they come back again and again?
Mhm. And you were mentioning values, culture. Uh, Well, I think we both agree how relevant this is for a company, and particularly thinking about building a sustainable business for the long term. The values of the company, the culture of the company. When a company grows significantly, and particularly when it becomes global in many different markets, many uh, mm, it sometimes it could become a challenge, no, to keep these values, to keep this culture of the company. How has been your experience related with that, or what is your view about how to do things in order to keep and to reinforce this culture, these values?
So I'm a very big believer that values eat strategy for breakfast.
Hmm.
In other words, a company's core values and the repetitiveness of those values and the reinforcement of those values by everybody in the organization is one of the key foundations of what makes for long-term sustainable success in an organization. If you look at some of the best companies in the world offering the very best to their customers, their partners, you find that the common thread amongst them is very strong values within an organization that are easily repeated by people deep into the organization, and therefore everyone knows they're pulling in the same way. We've got a global business. We're doing business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, somewhere in the world, 365 days out of the year. There are thousands of decisions being made every day, every hour, and the vast majority of those decisions are being made with the core values of what the company's about, not on, is this in this year's strategy? And if you can maintain and reinforce those values as a leader, how do you maintain and reinforce them? What do you do in a meeting format to reinforce and demonstrate those values? We talked about earlier, what are those times when you're up front
Yeah.
with everybody, perhaps in front of a large audience of your organization in a certain part of the world? How do you reinforce for them that which they live every day? How do you demonstrate it and live it with them? Or how do you reinforce for them what they do? How do you make sure that you make those people who reinforce those values every day feel recognized and acknowledged for their efforts so that it becomes a natural instinct? This is the right thing to do. This is a core value of Estée Lauder, of who we are. Those are the kinds of things that as a leader, if you can reinforce them and weave them into the themes of what you talk about and how you conduct yourself and how you encourage everybody, they become an embedded part of the organization. And every organization has different ways of reinforcing them. It's a day-to-day and mentorship in an organization where you are, as a manager, responsible for training the newer members of your team into what those core values are. One of the things that we do is we have extensive ongoing education programs which are offered to our employees at many different levels of the organization, where we're offering them, they're both in-person educational environments as well as remote educational environments on different platforms, where we have outside professors from universities talking about what certain value systems are. We have executives talking about that. We have an in-person program that's almost a week-long full immersion that really brings both executives from our company from around the world, as well as some of our partners, our suppliers, our retail partners, and others. We bring them in, and they have a week-long intense indoctrination. Everyone wears the same uniform. And a lot of what it does is it reinforces some of the core values of who we are as a company. And there are a number of senior executives who've joined our company. When they've attended, they said, I didn't understand what it was you were talking about till I got there. And now I understand what it is to be a part of the Estee Lauder and the Estee Lauder family and the value system that drives us to who we are. But there are many other great organizations. They have the same, if you look at the core concept, it's a value system that not necessarily, some were injected by the founders, some were injected by other leaders, but they became very effective tools.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it is key, this idea of values, and as you were saying, no, when you think about how to transmit these values or this culture of the company to the whole organization, particularly when you become a global organization and not everybody is, because at the beginning when you start the company everybody is in the same place and discussing every day, every weekend, every night, but then you become bigger and bigger. And I think in my experience it needs to be a combination of something more formal, so programs, internal, external, as you were mentioning, and then something more informal. It's the and in this part, in this more informal element, also internal promotion plays a very relevant role. So it's a lot of people transmitting these same values, transmitting this same culture, that you feel comfortable with what they are doing, and that they are transmitting this culture all across the company. Having said that, sometimes it's a challenge, particularly when there are moments of very significant growth, and then a lot of people joining the company, and you need to pay special attention. When you are a leader, you need to pay special attention to that. So not only to the financial performance of the company, but also to keep these values, to keep this culture that is so relevant for the company, thinking about the not only the today, but thinking about the medium, and not to lose the essence of the company, the spirit, the soul of the company.
I agree, but I'd go one step further in saying everybody who joins the company, they bring an element of their DNA
Yeah.
into the organization
Yeah.
that perhaps changes it. Whether it's an individual who joins
Yeah.
the organization in an influential position, or, for example, as a part of our company, we made an acquisition once where this is back in 1994. The first brand we acquired is a brand called MAC. And one of the things we found was that they had a very strong value system that garnered an extraordinary amount of loyalty from their frontline workers in stores. And we tried to understand what was it that gave them that commitment to the brand that was much greater than what we'd seen elsewhere. And what we found was they were committed to a cause that they believed in that was more than just selling a lot of lipstick. So we said, this is something that we, Estee Lauder Company, should adopt across our organization. And we created something called the Breast Cancer Campaign. And we came together as a company across brands, across markets, around the world. And that was a new strand of DNA added to the organization. And so when you talk about how you onboard, bring people in, not only is it indoctrinating them to your value system, but what is it that you can add to make this even better still?
And also you take things from, for example, in the case of Inditex, there are, when we started our operations in Japan, then we started, it was a tradition to have, before opening the store, a meeting of all the staff. And then this was applied to the whole company. It was the Nippon meetings before. So when you bring different cultures, different people,
right,
you can always take a lot of things.
Find something that works.
I want to come back, William, to the poem. There is another fragment that you have selected, with is, for me, very, very important, which is, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same. This is like, well, for me, it's something that I would say it's impossible, in my opinion, to fully achieve this, but it needs to be something that you try to achieve, not to, when you meet with triumph and disaster, to treat these two impostors just the same is, it would be ideal to be able to fully achieve this. But why have you selected this fragment, and what does it mean to you?
Well, what it means to me is triumph. You have done something well, and you want to find a way to repeat that. And disaster means you made a mistake. Well, first of all, you have to make sure that you don't make the same mistake twice. So you have to embrace those mistakes and learn from it. Well, why is that so important? Well, I said something earlier about encouraging everyone to try,
Yeah.
and encouraging people to try means permission to fail.
Mm.
Well, let's think about how we learn from those failures to do things better, right?
Mm.
And that's a very important. Not only is it for important us as individuals and how we keep
Yeah.
performing, but as an organization, you need that institutional knowledge of those things that we have come before that have worked most effectively to keep repeating them, and those things that have come before that haven't worked as well, just to make sure you don't repeat them. So you have to learn from that. And again, I'll make reference to the medical world. There's something called M&M rounds, morbidity and mortality,
Mm.
which means if you're a doctor and you lose a patient, at some point, you're going to have to get up in front of your colleagues, present the facts of the case, and take questions from them about things you could have or should have listened to. And everybody's there together learning from mistakes to make sure that they don't lose a patient.
Mm.
Well, how do we apply that to the business world? A patient is a consumer. A patient is a new project. How are we going to make sure that we have done it well? How are we going to make sure, what did we learn from this? This didn't work. Why didn't it work? What should we have known that we didn't know? And what should we look out for in the future? And we realize that we all, as individuals and as organizations, get better by learning to do what we do most effectively. Well, learning to do what we do really doesn't just happen when you are succeeding, but it also happens when you're not succeeding
Mm.
and you learn from it. And if we say, one of the things we talk about in our organization, fail fast and fail cheap.
Mm.
In other words, try something new. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, okay, let's
Yeah.
move on. But let's just make sure that it's not a fatal mistake that's dangerous to the entire organization. So you take smaller risks in trying something and see if it works. And that iterative improvement over time, you learn to realize that you as an individual and as a unit, we can try something new. We can see if we can do this better. And if we do this better, we're gonna be celebrated, number one, but we're gonna be appreciated for having added something that brings success to the
Mhm.
organization.
Oh, very good. And William, I wanted to talk a little bit about your leadership style. How do you see yourself as a leader? And also about people that have inspired you in your trajectory, probably from the family, I imagine, but not only, no, but people that have inspired you. But about your leadership style, you are very demanding. Are you very demanding? Are you very approachable? How would you define your leadership style and about people that have inspired you?
So I'm going to quote a gentleman who has taught in my class named Alex Gorski. He's the former CEO and chair of Johnson & Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a wonderful quote which says, the further you get it, higher up in an organization you get, the funnier your jokes.
Mm-hmm.
But I use that to sort of mitigate the fact that
That's essential for me, and it has also to do with the poem that when you are at the top of the organization, yeah, everybody you tend to be very very funny. Everybody pays a lot of attention to you.
right.
And you can lose the common touch, as Rudyard Kipling says.
Exactly. So I believe that I have an approachable style, but my belief is again, it goes back to almost the first thing we talked about, which is I want to encourage you to make the good decisions and for me to support those decisions. And I prefer to take a style of asking a question
Yeah.
or saying, here's a goal. I can't tell you whether you should go right foot first, left foot first to get there, but here's a goal. See how you can solve to get to that goal.
Mm.
And occasionally along the way, I'd rather them come and tell me we've achieved the goal or to say, here's how far we've gotten, here are the challenges we have, and have a conversation about how we perhaps can get around those obstacles and challenges to the goal. I don't feel it's our role as leaders, especially in larger organizations, to give very specific prescriptions to success.
Hmm.
Our role is to inspire,
Hmm.
set a goal of what we want to achieve, and give the teams the freedom to find the right way to get there because they're closer to the day-to-day of the execution, and they might have a way better solution than your idea may be. Perhaps if you think about it, because we as leaders, as we achieve levels of leadership, especially in larger global organizations, it's because we've gone through many steps and layers in an organization. So we may not be as close every day to the day-to-day, which is why I come back to you have to give credit to those people who really are at the front line of the organization that make them effective.
But always, no, it's always my view. It's always a balance because at the same time, there are relevant decisions that you want also to be able to take. So
Right.
it is probably more the execution, no, that you don't get so much involved.
I found by setting the standards and saying to the team, you go out and do it, but say, here are the things that I feel strongly I'd like to be kept up to date
Yeah,
on. And usually those
that's
are
it.
things that are a little more permanent once a decision
Mm,
is made. So therefore, let's make sure we're making the right
yeah,
decision. Things that could have the impact on the image of the
yeah,
entire organization or for the achievement of the goal of the brands. But what I don't think our role
yeah.
is
It's
is
to
to be an
be.
obstacle
Yeah, you know
to
that
decision making.
William, I was receiving from different people during quite often a phone call that I like very much, and it was Pablo. I'm thinking about doing this, but before doing it, I wanted to know your opinion. This was meaning for me that this person knew perfectly that it was his or her decision,
Mhm.
and at the same time, that this person was giving some value to my opinion. But it was not, I need your authorization or I need your permission. I wanted to know your opinion. But
Right.
this phone call is something I was liking always very much, no? Saying, because it was that person decision.
Well, something that that works for me as a style point is I have regular standing updates with senior executives in the company, and when we sit down together for the first time, I share with them that when they cross the transom of the door to my office, whether it's virtual or real, I tell them that they're here to tell me their truth.
Yeah.
They can tell me whatever it is that they feel is
Yeah.
strong. They're not going to get a negative reaction
Yeah.
from me. Instead, I'm here to listen, to hear what those challenges are, and to discuss how we can find a solution. And I try to create that safe space. And these are not just people who may have reported directly to me, but these may be people who are a little further
Yeah.
down in the organization. And I try to do it in a way so that there's no footprints or fingerprints, so that they feel comfortable telling me what they see as an issue. And I actively tell them, I don't want you to tell me what you think I want to hear.
Yeah, that's very
I
important.
want you to tell me what you see and hear.
Yeah.
And let's discuss together what we can
Yeah,
do.
that's very important. And yeah, it's I yeah, and to have in the team also so to create this environment in which people really express the real opinions, not what you want to hear, even if this is uncomfortable, no, and but or critical. But that is absolutely I fully agree that this and about people that have inspired you as leader. For example, in my case, you know, William, I always have admired very much the founders. I think the most difficult thing is to create something. I could talk, of course, of Amancio Ortega. I could talk, well, about your grandmother. No, I could talk about Sam Walton. So these people that create a company is for me always very, very inspiring. But not only, because also transformational CEOs is people that. But I don't know in your case, William.
You know, I'm fortunate. I've worked with many different and had contact with many different, very successful, accomplished leaders, each of whom has left a mark in one way, shape, or form. I've got extraordinary admiration for the total focus and determination of my grandmother, Mrs. Estée Lauder, as a founder. She was relentless in her desire and in promoting the brand and traveling. Think about this: 1946, post World War II, United States.
Yeah,
She's traveling around the country by train,
that's
selling her brand all over
unbelievable.
as a female entrepreneur at that time.
Unbelievable.
Which is you look back at today and you say, my goodness, what was she like? And I'm often asked the question, what was it like to have Estée Lauder as your grandmother? I said, well, on one hand, she was my grandmother. She was like your grandmother. She worried whether my brother and I had enough to eat and whether we were wearing a sweater when it was cold. And then there was this whole other side of her where she was this entrepreneurial person who was pushing so hard to create a business and build a business and make it successful. My two predecessors as CEO in our company, Fred Langhammer, my immediate predecessor, and my father, who's CEO before him, each of them taught me a great deal of where the responsibility is to be a leader and what we can do most effectively. I learned a great deal from my most recent partner, Fabrizio Freda, who was CEO, who succeeded me as CEO. I had a mentor and a woman named Rosemary Bravo, who taught me a great deal. And there are a number of different executives, and some of them are in the book that I wrote, who I was able to quote, who just shared really. Sometimes it's just a nugget of an idea that sort of fits into the puzzle of what we're thinking that made a difference. So, for example, Michael Eisner, who was then the CEO of Disney. I asked him how Disney, is very strong in values and culture, in a company that has different operations all over the world where they have an extraordinary loyalty and following from their consumer, but also extraordinary loyalty from their employees. And I asked, well, how do you, across all these different platforms, how do you maintain those Disney values? And he shared with me what they do and how they do it. And we found a way to adopt those principles inside of our company, because while we're in one industry, in the prestige beauty industry, we've got multiple brands doing business all over the world. And so how do we bring together these separate parts of the organization so we can weave in a value system that's consistent across all of them?
And William, I wanted, because we are running out of time, I would keep talking with you about leadership for a much longer period, but I wanted to ask you one more personal question, and then, as far as we are here at IE University with the Kipling Balance, also to finish the conversation, asking you what advice would you give to any student at IE, undergraduate, graduate programs, MBAs, to the students. But the more personal question is to know a little bit more about your routine. Are you, I don't know, do you exercise? Do you meditate? Are you traveling a lot? How do you organize your work-life balance, the family, the obligations that you have? How do you balance, or what are your hobbies? I don't know. Do you play golf or read? So a little bit more personal about you, and then, of course, to finish the conversation with what advice would you give to IE students?
So it was a wonderful question. So first, some might argue my work-life balance may not be the same balance that they have. I travel a great deal. I travel almost 2 weeks a month, and I've been doing that for 40 years. So it's a muscle that I've built up, almost used to it. And those years of COVID where traveling was just a click of the mouse, it wasn't as satisfactory. It certainly was more efficient.
Yeah, but I was missing.
But you missed the whole touch and feel of seeing the consumer and the people, and that was the part that we missed terribly. So I do travel a great deal. I enjoy working, so I probably work more than some others might, but I enjoy doing what I'm doing. I try to make sure I'm exercising at least 4 or 5 days a week in the morning. And believe it or not, while I'm traveling, it's so much more important to maintain that, because usually when you're traveling, well, somebody's inviting you for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner. So.
Much more important. I fully agree, because if not, please.
The standard is the hotel's got to have a good gym.
Yeah.
Got to be open early enough in the morning for me to be able to exercise before I start my day. So I don't do it in the morning. It's very difficult. And even at home too, I try.
For me, it's the same. Early in the morning. I mean, it's wonderful for the whole day.
And I find that a form of meditation.
Yeah.
You get to zone out. Even though recently I've been finding, instead of listening to music, I'm actually listening to podcasts. So my brain is going. And it goes so much faster as a result. And I listen. I meet somebody, I hear a good podcast. Okay, let me go listen to it, and hopefully it matches up to my exercise time. Those are important. And advice for young executives, first and foremost, I believe when you're young, you have so much more flexibility. And that's the time to really explore. What's exploration? Exploring yourself and what you're capable of by pushing yourself, exploring the world and finding opportunities. Perhaps you're working for an organization where you can be posted to a different part of the world, perhaps a place where you speak the language or learning the language, or you've already been curious, you want to live there. And it's so important, because if you're not stretching yourself when you're young, it's going to be much harder when you're older to learn how to stretch yourself. And always talk to young executives about the principles of roots and anchors,
Mm.
and how when you're young, the roots of your tree are much shallower because they haven't had the chance to grow. That means you have much more flexibility. Your parents are younger. You may or may not have a significant other or children or other things that end up making those roots grow deeper. And at the same time, the anchors, those things that hold you back, are much lighter and much more easily pulled out and moved so that you can take an opportunity. And oftentimes when I'm talking to young executives, especially like students in my class, they're MBA students in their late 20s mostly, I share with them, now's the time to really push yourself and to explore. Don't wait until you're in your mid to late 30s, because so many of these other aspects of your life will have come in to make those anchors heavier, make those roots grow deeper. And the deep roots are, if you will, using the analogy of the tree, allows it to hold back even stronger winds, but at the same time makes it harder to move. And I find myself, and I use myself as an example, I was always referencing those years of exploration when I was trying new things and trying different things, where just having that opportunity to explore and experiment was so important in the process of learning for myself what I was capable of, but just as importantly, finding ways to help the organization explore new ways of doing things so that we can be more effective, more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
I had a wonderful experience a number of years ago. I participated in a program with Outward Bound, which is a program that was designed to teach youths to push themselves in a safe environment so that when they are really in a challenging environment, instead of panicking, they're calm. And I was on a ropes course, and part of the ropes course is you climb up a tree and you shimmy across a rope. And I get to the last rope, and I'm standing on a platform about 10 meters off the ground, and there's a big rope. There's two ropes going across, and on the upper rope, there's short ropes coming down. I had to shimmy across holding the ropes like this. I get to the last one, and I'm holding on one end, and I'm reaching for the other, and it's just beyond my fingertips. I'm stretching. The guide who has me on belay from below says, if you don't let go of what's behind you, you're not going to reach what's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 10 meters off the ground, but I'm not going to stay up here forever. So I let go. I instantly grab the rope and I get to the platform. But I've never forgotten that analogy.
Yeah, it's very.
If you don't let go of what's behind you, you're never going to reach what's in front of you.
Yeah,
and if you think of that as a mantra for life, right? At some point, you're going to have to let go. And sometimes we're forced to let go, like a mother bird puts the out of the nest. We get older, we go to university, and then perhaps we find an organization hires us and says, okay, you may have grown up in Madrid, but by the way, we're sending you to Hong Kong. You have a choice, no or yes. For me, when I was working at Macy's, and my mentor called me up one day and said, we're opening a store in Dallas. I want you to go open the store for me in Dallas. I thought about it for a moment. And she said, I'll let you think about it over the weekend. I said, okay. I thought about it for the weekend. Monday morning, her assistant calls us, come to her office. I came to her office, and she said, so you're moving to Dallas? I said, okay, I'm moving to Dallas. And it was a bit of a push, but you know what? It was a fabulous experience.
It was a great
decision. So glad I did it, because it pushed me beyond my comfort zone. And in the process, I also had more responsibility that pushed me also to learn more about my capabilities as a leader.
Well, thank you, William. It has been a pleasure and an honor to share this conversation with you. Really, congratulations, because you are leading this so relevant company, Estée Lauder, with so much focus on culture, on values, that on your customers for sure, but it's really something remarkable, and it has been my great pleasure to share this conversation with you. Thank you very much, William.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me today, and thank you for talking about my favorite subject, leadership.
Thank you.